Okay, time to go.
I'm gonna get the truck pulled up round back!
Do it fast. I gotta get my dad out of here.
I don't plan on dilly-dallying. Honey, take Duck into the office and barricade the living hell out of the door behind me. Glenn, when you hear me honking in the alley, start getting people out of here. You got it. Doug, Carly, and Lee, you guys make sure our defenses stay up till then. And Lee, I better take that axe in case I run into any of them on the way to my truck.
Here you go.
Guys, that door's not locked anymore. Shit! You three, get on it! I'll get back as fast as I can.
Stay away from the windows.
Hi, I'm Rob Cram, and today we're taking a look at Telltale Games' well-established and highly successful The Walking Dead video game series, which is available on consoles, handheld devices, PC platforms, and is now in its second season after a blisteringly tense and shocking finale in Season 1. To begin, we have to go back to the beginning, which starts off with lead character Lee Everett, an ex-university professor being driven to jail following his conviction for murdering a senator who was sleeping with his wife. There's little backstory revealed about events prior to this moment, as players quickly find there are bigger events in the world that take precedence over any past misdemeanors. Lee is unwittingly drawn into the zombie apocalypse as the story unfolds, which reveals a tale of survival of the fittest amidst the zombies, or walkers as they are referred to as, and a world gone mad as fellow survivors abide by their own rules in a now anarchic society, struggling to cling on to its existence versus the Walking Dead. From the offset, and what is perhaps paramount throughout the entire first season, is Lee's relationship with 8-year-old girl and lone survivor Clementine, who he finds at her abandoned parents' home, and swears to protect her from the ensuing madness. Without going into too many specifics of the story, it's this foundation of protection which is toyed with, as Lee's entire focus revolves around not only his own will to survive, but the need to provide the best he can for Clementine, whether that be fighting off the undead, or making sure that any interaction with other survivors is for her benefit. It's an odd relationship given the dog-eat-dog world that's presented further into the story, but does give Lee a far greater motive to live and numerous difficult choices to make than if he was just a lone survivor merely looking out for himself. The clever use of having an invulnerable partner, which players never get to control directly until Season 2, is what makes the story and predicaments contained within so tense and fulfilling. Players are presented with numerous choices made by way of conversation with others, and it's here where the consequences have an impact on the flow of the story, although they might not reveal themselves right away. What's neat is the fact that in many scenarios there's no real right or wrong answer amidst the moral minefield presented, and at times an element of sacrificial reasoning is presented to the player which tugs at the emotional strings and shrouds the choices in various shades of grey. Make a choice which perhaps sides with one character will often result in making another behave differently towards you, especially given the fact that there's little time to actually make the choice, as only a few seconds are given. This in itself highlights the importance of paying attention and understanding the relationships with others through conversation and making a judgment based on their individual character traits. Season 1 has a distinct focus on setting the tone of the game, highlighting the zombie presence as an ongoing threat, although touches on the interpersonal relationships and problems that arise from differing opinions. There's an element of shifting between social groups which remains a common theme for the entire series, but the reality of staying within a group to hold out until some sense is made of the situation is the recurring theme. Season 2 opts to change the pacing a little as players take control of an older Clementine, and it's here where there is a shift in focus towards the depravity and danger of other humans. The zombie presence is always there in the background, but the story cleverly suggests that humans can be equally as dangerous. Throughout each episode, there are moments of clear-cut choices, which are often interspersed with a bit of action, but these rest within the realms of simple quick-time events and pointing a crosshair at the screen before being eaten alive in what can be loosely described as traditional gameplay. Aside from these events, there's an air of point-and-click adventuring, where players have control of the character viewed in third person and can move them around in boxed areas quite freely, but are guided to click on specific points of interest. Usable items can be collected, but there's little thought required of their use due to the rather obvious moments when they come in handy. Season 2 somewhat changes the on-screen display method, which keeps familiar elements but also adds more inputs during key moments. In a nutshell, it's all easy to play, where the biggest issue is time itself and not reacting quick enough and falling foul to the odd zombie bite here and there. Luckily, there's little punishment as players restart the same scene pretty much where they left off. This is certainly a story-focused experience rather than a traditional game, where paying attention to each scene requires focus and little distraction. In some ways, it's an interactive movie, so for those seeking all-out action are going to be quite unfulfilled here, despite the game's premise. Being based on the comics, the game's looks are in keeping with a graphic novel approach, offering simple details and flat colour tones. That's not to say the game is devoid of finer details, as there's a fair bit where it counts, such as when sinking sharp implements into the skulls of zombies. It's a visceral, brutal game at times, which is made all the more visually effective due to its clever use of camera work, providing close-up shots of the action. Whilst it could be construed as simply being a cartoon for adults, there's a certain charm to the presentation which makes it all the more pleasing on the eye, despite the overall lack of details you'd expect had the game opted for a more realistic look. Atmosphere is crucial here, what with the chilling intro music and the shuffling sounds from the zombie masses, although the main meat of the audio palette is smothered in voice acting, which remains top quality from all the characters. There's not one performance which could be taken as being over the top or unfitting with the game, which makes for a more believable cast. In this regard, the game does a fine job of conveying thoughts and emotions, which ultimately has a profound effect on the player and decisions made, although this is also in part thanks to an excellently penned script which meanders around several thought-provoking themes and tests which characters the players are likely to warm to. The only real criticisms here are in Season 2, which sees Clementine addressed by other characters in an unnaturally adult manner, which, although expected given the circumstances, feels a bit jarring at times. The Walking Dead series is split into several episodes, which are then divided into sections, although the transitions aren't noticeable when playing. Starting from Season 1, this is made up of 5 episodes which can last over an hour or more each. There's an additional bonus episode with the 400 days content, which introduces several controllable characters who you then get to meet in Season 2. It has to be stressed that to get the full understanding of the game and some references in Season 2, it's certainly prudent to have played all of Season 1 beforehand. Whilst it's feasible to just jump into Season 2, it would be a shame to do so, as you would be robbing yourself of key information surrounding some of the relationships. The game does provide options to not be concerned with the past, so newcomers can pick up the story, and there's an option to replay each episode to see alternate outcomes based on different choices being made. As a game, the Walking Dead video game series is something that's quite different to your typical action-laden zombie mashup. There's a far more detailed and engaging narrative on offer that makes the experience sit within the pastures of interactive movie rather than a game. If you can live with the fact that there's a lot of passive watching events unfold, mild exploration, some quick time events, and a limit on the actual shooting, then you'll find a series that's well worth the price of entry for each episode, or better yet, as a package with a season pass. The story here is quite simple and relies more on characterization, but sinks its hooks into players right off the bat. The rest effortlessly falls into place as characters are introduced and allegiances formed, making a well-rounded and original take on the zombie apocalypse, which has been done to death in video games. The Walking Dead series scores 9 out of 10. I'm Rob Cram. Thanks for watching.
Well, we'll just turn back if it gets hairy.